you doing, Cole?
I'm doing good.
Um,
As good as can be. How about yourself?
well, not too great given some things that happened today.
You know, have a conversation more to my right-hand side.
Sure. Channel 20.
There are some things I need to discuss with you, but I'm sure that you may have some things to discuss with me. So I'll let you go first if you do have any, that is.
I'm trying to collect my thoughts here. Let's have you start first.
The reason why I want to have this conversation is because I've been very distant. The Oracle have been very distant. We've been, let's say, keeping a close eye at a certain channel, and nobody's actually seen just yet. But I'm here to tell you, to make something very clear, that the faces haven't changed. If anything, they've become exactly what we both expected to become, Brian. More patient, more deliberate, more ambitious.
The way I see it is that the Faceless have, in a way, kind of become a platform. They have their own projects, weapons trafficking, information, assassinations, be it loose ends or particular targets. But beyond just their immediate goals, you now have the Nexus. You got the Archivist. You have Zenith. In one way or another, sitting on top of that foundation that they've created. While independently, those other organizations would usually be something that we can isolate and dismantle. With them being a part of the Faceless network, it makes it all that much more difficult.
I'm glad you understand something. Seems like half the PD don't. We both know the Faces are not criminals. Criminals chase profit. Criminals chase tough. The Faceless, they chase structure. And let's just say they study the same exact systems that hold this city together. And then they start removing it pieces by pieces, right? Quietly.
To me, it kind of looks like they're building a cage. And we're the ones inside of it. But I'm starting to wonder if they're the ones making the decisions. Or whether they, too, have someone directing them.
You know, it's funny you mentioned the word directing. Faceless move pieces until the whole thing begins to lean in their direction. And lately, Director, they've been removing some very important pieces. Did somebody from the FIB finally reach out to you?
Yes. Seems like it's a whistleblower. Seems like he knows some things. FIB's involvement and some matters of past. And I think the Faceless, as well as another entity, are trying to find that individual or more about them. To what end, unclear.
You see, I read the first file that was given by this whistleblower. I believe he gave one to you. He gave one to the Oracle. Well, I guess myself. I believe he gave one to some sort of news agency. I think we both know who I'm trying to imply here.
It's not all he gave it to. One other entity as well. But they don't know, I know.
Who could be trusted enough to have this vital information is the question.
I don't know. Apparently New Babylon got their hands on it. And that FIB agent has been in communication with them. At least that's what I'm being led to believe.
The FIB communicating with New Babylon.
Well, directly or indirectly. But that kind of draws a question, right? Is this whistleblower whistleblowing the FIB? Because that's what it seems like, right? If FIB have a memo, and that memo is being leaked by the whistleblower effectively, then the FIB likely is not authorizing this, right? Otherwise, they would be sending this documentation directly to the state marshals.
You know, I've read the first file. And what interests me is what those files mention. It seems like they mention things that the Faces have already touched, already moved, already taken. Which means the only thing the clock has started. The question is what? What has started?
To the best of our understanding, it appears to be some form of system, a system that consists of many parts, and if those parts begin to go haywire, the entire thing falls. Now, given that it's a FIB document and it references some technicalities, I can only presume it's talking about some sort of digital or analog system. Could be water, could be the water systems, it could be electricity, it could be financial, it could be the totality of it all. See, a lot of those things are rather redacted. So knowing what the particulars are is, to be seen.
You know, I had a conversation with somebody on our side, and he said something that piqued my interest. He said that he haven't seen much of the Faces activity within the last month, which is quite funny because, if I'm being honest, I think this has been their busiest month. Something bigger is happening underneath all of this noise. Like today, digital Darkstone Logistics Corp. Ask yourself, is that helping the Faces, or is that helping the criminals?
I think a little bit of both. One of the biggest Faceless tools has been the Dread Turret. It effectively allowed them to garner favor with these entities that sort of became enslaved to them. And for me, our not just myself, but my department, our hypothesis is they have interest in a uplink device. Well, what is an uplink? An uplink would allow them to transmit from a center to the rest of their network. And now we have a logistics device. Well, what logistics does the Faceless specialize in? Well, the answer is weapon trade. So right now we're sort of positioning ourselves to be prepared for the inevitable, which is the reopening of the supply chain. Ammo, magazines, weapons. Obviously, they may dabble into drugs, but nothing seemingly points in that direction just yet. Keep an eye on that.
Yeah, eyes on.
Yeah, like I said, something big has happened underneath all of this. Something they've been preparing for quietly, while everyone else is too busy chasing headlines and talking about the marshals and talking about the PD, gang wars, band trucks. And I don't think certain institutions in the city understand how close they are to it. But the reason why I have conversations with you is because you understand. But the Faces begin accelerating their operations. They're not testing the system anymore. They're preparing to change it. And judging by what I've seen lately, they're getting very close. When I say what I've seen things that haven't even made onto the PD radar.
Say that last bit again. They're trying to get onto the PD radar. Is that what you said?
I said they've been doing things that don't even go on the PD radar.
I fully believe that. Especially when I look at the number of situations we've thwarted simply from coming across them. Ming Jintai's situation comes to mind. And we can't have our eyes everywhere, right? And unfortunately, a lot of times, local law enforcement will come across things and not pay much attention. I made a comment in regards to the uplink and the logistics. How accurate do you think that might be?
If I'm being honest, I think the uplink is the bigger threat, and this logistics cause a distraction to make you believe what you're believing right now. I think the uplink is, I'll put it like this. This FIB document we've all received. What do you think it's trying to mention? Because I have my beliefs.
I mean, it could be the city's data. And an uplink inherently transmits information. It's intended. I mean, if it's the uplink, I think it is. You normally have an uplink to a satellite dish. So what would be on the receiving end? You're going to be sending information, maybe all of the FIB documents, internal notes, and those FIB documents could contain everything. I mean, there's the FIB's desire to. There's a situation on Spanish Avenue where they're trying to get their hands on the blueprint to the city infrastructure, right? It could be everything tied to that.
You know, speaking of the FIB, there's two things I want to tell you. I was reached out by one of our contacts seeking for help. one of theirs got kidnapped a couple of weeks ago. Caleb Rowe.
Mm.
And Caleb Rowe here has a lot of information regarding the Faceless, the FIB, the past, and he's nowhere to be seen.
Let me ask you a direct question.
Absolutely.
Robert, fuck's his last name? Robert Gibson. Or Ryan Gibson. What is Ryan Gibson's relationship with Caleb Rowe?
I've never heard of this Ryan Gibson name before.
Huh. How close with the FIB are you? Was it just Caleb that you know, or does it expand beyond that?
I personally don't know Caleb. It's somebody else that we know that have reached out to the Oracle trying to get help. The Oracle and the FIB, of what I know.
Has there been any mention about Ryan Gibson's records being stolen by the Faceless and one other entity? Or records in general? Huh. Interesting.
Never heard of Ryan Gibson before.
Well, it's entirely possible that's a pseudonym. Not a pseudonym, but rather a masked name. In relation to the FIB, and I don't really know where all these pieces fall together. But Ryan Gibson, if that is his name, or whatever person he actually is, from the financial records that were taken by the Faceless and this other entity, they did so for a reason. And I know that the Faceless was one of these parties, and whoever that second party was has no correlation with the Faceless. At least one that's direct at this time. So for both of these entities to have simultaneously sought the same set of records means that there was a common cause. Now, I don't believe we're going to figure out what that common cause was yet or ever. But whatever that caused them to seek these records, the goal would have had to have been the same. But we received a copy of these records. And at first we looked at it through the lens of what we would look through when we're investigating a criminal. Very similar to phone records. And we noticed some transactions in there that began to raise an eyebrow. Names that we recognized. Many names that were very similar to one another. Well, not so much similar to one another, but rather names that we recognize and names that we did not expect to be conjoined. And then it occurred. This individual, more likely than not, is a investigator from the year 2020 to the year 2024. Investigated things from old businesses, be it the Rooster's Rest, be it Denzel, part of the Clean Boys, the Songside Lang, investigated them for some time. Later investigated Autos and its auxiliary businesses. Now you see these things come in blocks. Now, on one hand, it's not abnormal to conduct business by, going and getting a restaurant, going and getting a car rental. However, when you have blocks of transactions, that is showing more locational intent. And then in, I want to say 2022, the investigation begins to focus on something called the Hollow Trust. And Mr. Forrest. And Ian.
Great food.
And names belonging to faceless assets.
Sorry, did you just say Ian Crawford?
Correct. Head of logistics for Darkstone. The individual that so casually spoke to a faceless asset and kept information from us.
1 second. Ian Crawford, you've been in contact with him.
I have.
And he told you he's part of Darkstone Logistics.
Correct.
That is interesting.
Is he not?
Not when I ran into him a couple years back.
Did he work for Ligara?
No, Ian Crawford is a very strange man. I was put in contact with him about 2 or 3 years ago. He seemed to know a lot of information. He seemed to know how certain people operate. He also was protected. Bank records couldn't get. His past we couldn't get. Anything that the Oracle thrives in doing, hacking, information. Ian Crawford is a ghost. We thought he must have ties to FIB, the state. But now you're seeing years later, he's claiming to be Darkstone Logistics. That is interesting.
I brought this up with Delta One, and he was familiar with their logistics team. And Crawford was very familiar with Darkstone things. Now, that's not to say that this isn't like a rudimentary, maybe they didn't do a background check, but he was also very familiar with Wilson King. Now, note that we are aware of, through faceless documentation, there was effectively a contract in which, in this faceless document, Wilson King was a target, and they named Wilson King to be one of the employees of the logistics team. And the intent was for the uplink. In that same document, it noted that Ian Crawford was his manager. Now, if the faceless's intel is wrong, that's possible. But Ian was questioned, as was the other man before. Who was Ian back then?
Like I said, he was protected. Protected by who, I do not know. But I was told to get in contact with him to get a piece of evidence, a document, a file. A file on The faces itself, the investors, the people at the top, not Charlie, not even the man in blue. I mean the people pulling the strings. That document never came. He vanished.
What?
That's why I'm confused on how he's coming back and he's a part of Dogstone.
Well, I can tell you this much. He was likely in communication with the Faceless and inferred that Charlie and Delta One knew each other. That they likely worked for the same entity. Who's the Hollow Trust? And why was the FIB so interested in them so many years ago? And why does their memorabilia still exist? Such as the coin that was given to Edgar de Castillo over at Ron Oil.
You know, the FIB agent that's missing. Caleb Rowe. I was told by my inside man at the FIB that he checked his computer logs before he was kidnapped. Caleb Rowe went and dug up old files, investigations. Not Caleb Rowe. Caleb Rowe's person he was looking into. A man named Roman Gray. Does that ring any bells to you?
He was looking into Roman Gray.
Roman Gray was an FIB agent that died 10 years ago in the blast. Caleb, for some odd reason,
At the
started digging up
FIB
his-
building. The Talon
Caleb.
explosion.
Caleb, for some odd reason, decided to dig up Roman Gray's investigation. That's what we think flagged. And that's why we think the Faceless apprehended him. Apparently, Roman Gray was, before he died, 10 years ago, apparently he never did die.
I know that. I was there. I was a cadet, 695. Helicopter from BCSO had been stolen. And when the 911s about the blast at the FIB occurred, I had to convince all those dogshit cops that their chase, the fucking Fleeca Bank, wasn't more important than a state building getting blown up. That name that I received from Miller said her grandfather died in the FIB building, but I have the names of every victim from that day. And that name is not on there. And what you're telling me right now is translating to Roman Gray is this unknown entity who's looking into the Faceless and Talon back up until 2024, to which point he went missing.
I have some more information. Roman Gray, assumed dead by everybody. went by a different name. That name I do not know. But he was tasked with two things. Continue investigating Talon over the years, but also infiltrate the Faceless.
What?
Now, apparently, Roman Gray has not been seen since the end of 2024. Roman Gray's a ghost. The FIB don't know where he is. Nobody knows where he is. The reason why I'm telling you this is because that is why Caleb Robo kidnapped. He was looking into old files. I assume the Faces wanted to extract information on this Roman Gray individual. But I can tell you that Roman Gray was a man who apparently died 10 years ago, went by a different name, deep undercover, and was tasked to infiltrate the Faceless and continue investigating the people that nearly killed him.
How do you know he didn't turn?
I just thought of something. This might be a very strange coincidence. The initials Roman Gray, R and G. What's that name of this bank record you said?
Ryan Gibson. That's literally what I said 3 minutes ago. Ryan Gibson is Roman Gray. It all points to that. These bank records quite literally underline what you're saying. It's the only reasonable conclusion that can be drawn. What if this motherfucker is Mr. Blue? Motherfuckers go in deep and they don't know how deep they've gotten until they're wearing a fucking blue face mask.
Well, then why would the Faces want his records?
Distraction?
Is that something that stands out on those records?
It does. Hollow trust. Because what I'm indicating here is in 2022, individuals close to the Faceless and individuals close to Darkstone, like today, Darkstone names and Faceless names were simultaneously being looked into. But the one thing that is unexplainable is the Hollow Trust. So which makes me believe the Hollow Trust, Darkstone, and the Faceless were once a part of, before there was some disagreement that caused the split. And we know the Hollow Trust still operates because of the coin that Edgar de Castillo received. The hollow coin placed on his body. A hollow coin that he so desperately tried to retrieve back. The same hollow coin that was found on Victor Blackwell the day he was shot. A coin that may represent a calling card, not dissimilar to the coin that Ligara gives, not dissimilar to the cards that the Faceless leave behind. That is a decision made by a power, a entity that may be grander than them. Now, my statement about Mr. Blue is a bit tongue-in-cheek, but the point there being, people go in undercover and you never know how deep someone gets. And sometimes they really enjoy where they end up being. So I would not take that off the until I see this man for myself or have any evidence that he has not turned, I'm going to have to keep my guard up.
Well, the way I look at it is, if this Ryan Gibson is Roman Gray, and he was deep undercover infiltrating the Faceless, the FIB knew that. But he disappears at the end of 2024. Does the bank record say the same thing?
Yes.
So if the bank records comply...
Faceless. Someone go help Vil. She fell off the roof, please. You were saying?
If the FIB knew Roman Gray, Brian Gibson was infiltrating the Faceless, but then he vanished at the end of 2024. The fake bank accounts, the fake name, also states the exact same thing. But then the Faces want these bank records. It shows that he's a ghost, unless I'm being played. And I'm falling right into the trap of the Faceless.
There is no way to know with certainty, right? Which is why an action as... Is it reasonable to believe that the Faceless themselves as a organization don't know? Yes. But, and I'm just going on this extreme theory. I'm not saying Mr. Blue is Ryan Gibson. I'm just saying if I was Ryan Gibson and if I was Mr. Blue, I would have people investigate my old self. It removes doubt. Because why the fuck would you investigate yourself? And while I'm not saying this to be the case, but I'm saying that those options should be considered. I mean, fuck, it could be Charlie for all we know, though that is less likely.
That's exactly what I was about to say, to be honest.
Charlie, I can tell you that the Faceless assets have garnered the anger of Charlie. And many months ago, even Brandon would underline how he's failed many, many times and he needs help. And as much as I know some of this was a ruse for ultimately stabbing me, that doesn't mean that many of the truths he provided, such as the mission listing, didn't confirm truth. That he was a part of a transport. He was in many missions, and maybe he was needing to prove himself again by simply stabbing me. That he was still on their side. But the reason I underline that is not to say that Charlie himself may be under hot water. And maybe the Faceless are concerned about why these failures are occurring. I don't know.
There's something I've noticed over the last few months. Basically, whenever the besties did what they did, Charlie became very, very loud. And the man in blue became very, very distant. Interesting. I think it's all one big smoke and mirrors for whatever Blue was doing. The question is what? Then he comes back and then an uplink is stolen from Darkstone. FIB agents are being kidnapped. I don't know. But I think it's safe to assume that Ryan Gibson is Roman Gray. That's for sure. Whether he's a ghost, whether he's dead, whether he's in the Faceless, I don't know how would I come to that conclusion. But the question is, why would the Faces go that deep? And how about the banker being killed? I'm putting two and two together. That was the banker who gave the information, the bank documents. Why would the faces execute him?
He's still alive. But I think the attempted assassination, they both survived, based on reports. But they would kill him because he would be a loose end, right? And because they already know that another entity got their hands on those same documents.
Or there is something on those documents the faces did not want the PD to know about. I haven't seen the documents. I know you have. I wonder what it could be. Maybe it is the Hollow Trust. But why would the faces not want you to see that? You don't know who Ryan Gibson is, or Roman Gray. Maybe there's more to it.
I mean, it's possible. I mean, there's more there. There's other things being investigated. And on that same note, there's a reason that another entity needed to get their hands on this first. And it's rather clear that the Faceless, having kidnapped David a second time to figure out who that first entity was, is of a concern. And if that same entity, alongside the Faceless, need this information, it's because they're both attempting to keep a secret. Or wondering how deep this rabbit hole goes. Because if Ryan Gibson is alive, then that's probably the loosest end that exists. You know, it's quite interesting. There was a bombing recently with a very strange symbol on it, and someone admitted to me that they were behind it.
You know, the more I think about it, your theory is Roman Gray and Ryan Gibson may have turned because they went in too deep.
Not a theory, but a possibility.
I might start to agree because why has he gone ghost from the FIB? If he's truly there to infiltrate and take down this organization, why has he gone MIA for 2 years?
I feel like we haven't scratched a bit of the obvious. Why is Caleb Rowe leaking FIB documents?
What do you mean by that?
Well, the FIB would be releasing those documents directly to SASM. If it needs to be via a intermediary that you yourself call a whistleblower, you whistleblow on government. So is he not whistleblowing the FIB's involvement? And who's to say the FIB wasn't involved in assisting both of these entities? I mean, look at the Mujahideen in Afghanistan.
Let's see what you're trying to
propped up by the
imply.
government. Who's to say the government didn't prop up the fucking Faceless? And I'm not saying, and if not propped up, that's not to say that they wouldn't have necessarily, I mean, it wouldn't be the first fucking time, worked with them at some level. And maybe some of those things were discerned.
Are you implying that Caleb Rowe's a whistleblower?
That's what you told me he was.
I never said such things there, Brian.
Fuck, wait, was it not you?
Caleb is nothing but a data analyst.
Oh.
What I've gathered.
Wait, then who's the whistleblower? The Oracle document.
We don't know. That's the thing. Somebody deep
Oh,
in
it's
the
not
FIB.
the same person. I assumed he was the whistleblower. Okay, give me a second. The Oracle mentioned that the whistleblower would be in contact with us. So this isn't the whistleblower? Is this not the guy that was going to get in contact with us?
No, Caleb Rowe was a data analyst who was kidnapped.
What the fuck?
The whistleblower, we don't know who he is. We know he's trusted, and we know he's in the FIB. We don't know his identity. Caleb Rowe just so happens to be kidnapped by the Faceless and never seen again. Caleb Rowe just so happens to dig up old files on old Faceless and Talon investigations led by Roman Gray.
Who was the whistleblower whistleblowing on?
From what I know, the whistleblower from the FIB is leaking information on what the Faceless stole that one time in Spanish Avenue. Because whatever they stole is apparently very vital to the futures of this city.
And he was then kidnapped, right? Was this... And you don't know his whereabouts?
Who?
The whistleblower.
Okay, no, the whistleblower is alive and well, is what I've been told. We don't know who he is, though. What we do know is the information he's giving us is linking with the information the Faces stole from Peter Wallace on Spanish Avenue that one time.
Is he whistleblowing on the Faceless? Like, is he a Faceless? Likely.
No.
Holy
I think he's leaking documents
shit.
on the FIB.
Oh, what the fuck? We've been running under the presumption, because the whistleblower is meant to get in contact with us, that the person sending the Morse codes was the one that was getting in contact, and thus the whistleblower, who then turned out to be Caleb Rowe. But if they are two separate people, holy fucking shit.
Wait. I mean, you are correct. The whistleblower does communicate through Morse code at the Rebel Tower.
But his second Morse code was, help me CR. Caleb Rowe.
Sorry, excuse me. At the Rebel Tower?
Yes. The second Morse code message was, help me help me CR.
You're saying somebody used Morse code at the Rebel Tower that said, help me.
Yes. It was the second Morse code message. The first one was, I've been told to reach out to you. And this came days afterwards. Soon, when it's safe, I'll start dropping certain files. We need to stop them. This is where the FIB document ultimately came through in the third Morse code. But the second one said, save me CR.
It's interesting because we've only opened the line of communications for the whistleblower for that tower, not for Caleb Rowe. You say he used that same exact location.
No, this
positive?
is the FIB building.
Wait. So Caleb Rowe, completely nothing to do with the whistleblowing, reached out to you and said, help me.
Yes.
I'm assuming he somehow sent a message when he's captive. Question is, how did he do that?
What the fuck? So,
But if what you're saying is true, that Caleb Rose sent you a Morse code, help me, and we know he was kidnapped, he must have somehow got a message out to you.
Yes.
Interesting. Well, I mean, that proves he's not dead, I guess.
Okay, but what you're saying is that Caleb Rowe used the same means of communication as a whistleblower in the same like span of 2 weeks?
Well, you guys
You
are
don't think
FOB
there's a
agents.
relationship?
I don't think so. If that Morse code came out of the Rebel Tower, then I'll be very suspicious. Because the only people using that Rebel Tower would be the Oracle and also the whistleblower. The fact that that was the FIB building makes you believe this is non-related at all.
What the fuck?
I feel like I'm in a True Detective movie.
Oh my god, this fucks my entire worldview up. Okay, so the first and third message was actually from the whistleblower, but the second one, which is Caleb Rowe, but Caleb Rowe also ran into Miller at Davis, so we know he's alive. Did I tell you this? That Caleb Rowe actually met with Miller?
Excuse me, the Miller
Yes.
the cop.
No. Miller that got blown up by the Faceless.
Amanda Miller. I
Amanda
see.
Miller. Yes. But he met up with her like a week after saying, help me. So the running theory that we had was this may have been the partner of that FIB agent. And that the intention there is because that's actually Amanda Miller's father, right? You know, your daughter fucking almost dies. You're going to go check up on her, right?
Here's what I'm thinking. Two things. Either Caleb Rowe is being forced to work for the Faceless,
Yeah.
sending you hidden messages, or it was the Faceless forcing Caleb to send that message to make you completely confused. I think I know where the confusion lays. It's the Morse code. The whistleblower, I'm assuming you thought was Caleb due to that Morse code message. But I can confirm there is no link.
What the fuck? Caleb Rowe helped me at the FIB building, FIB agent. Roman Gray, FIB agent. I'm going to presume they're either one and the same or partners. Because they're seeking one. I also know Caleb Rowe, from what I was told. Oh my God. Where do the Babylonians fit in all this?
You've never spoken to New Babylon directly. You
Yes.
have given a message to Eliza a very, very long time ago, warning her. And she made the correct decision. All we need to do, well, I don't really agree with the method she's doing. But I'm not too sure where they fit. Now, if you're asking where do individual people fit, like Lang,
I've spoken to him. He's the one that told me to look into Caleb Rowe before Caleb Rowe reached out. He also indicated to me that the FIB building was attacked.
now how would he know that?
Which bit?
Caleb Rowe.
I don't know. Something that happened at the FIB building. What exactly, I'm not sure, because the day I went in there, there was a fucking booby trap. And I think the room that was trampled in was what exploded. And then it was shortly thereafter I received the Morse code.
So let me get this straight. I get contact with help find Caleb Rowe. Caleb Rowe is a data analyst for the FIB who was seen looking into old files, investigations led by Roman Gray, also known as Ryan Gibson. Caleb Rowe then gets kidnapped.
Well, who's to say that the Faceless kidnapped him? Who's to say that New Babylon didn't? Who's to say New Babylon was not the other party? I mean, who's to say New Babylon isn't Talon?
Let me understand something. Caleb Rowe looked into old files led by Roman Gray, also known as Ryan Gibson. Caleb Rowe gets kidnapped, never to be seen. Then these bad documents. Ryan Gibson, also known as Roman Gray.
You might be here for a while. Don't feel like you gotta stick around.
There seems to be a missing piece of the puzzle here, which I think I just found. Caleb Rowe was kidnapped by whoever to find out information on Roman Gray, which then led to these bank documents, is what I think.
I mean, it's possible.
Question is why?
Well, that's kind of the key in all this, right? Like, okay, Roman, or fucking, Caleb Rowe, he's kidnapped somewhere. All right, whoop-de-doo. Roman Gray, all right, he's targeted. Whoop-de-doo. Don't get me wrong. I mean, you know, kidnapping is bad and all that. But what you're saying right there, regardless of how it got to where it is, the question is the why. And the only reasonable conclusion, at least at this time, is he's a loose end. And if there is more, there's not enough to draw any kind of conclusion.
Let me think about this. The Faceless attacked this banker twice. They attacked this banker to get these bank documents, and they also attacked this banker to, find out information regarding
who the first party was.
So clearly the Faceless don't want anybody to know about these bank records. At least there has to be something there. There has to be.
I don't know if it's about whether they don't want that or they could equally want to know who else. Right.
But then why whack David right in front of you? Or try to anyway.
Well, it wouldn't be the first time.
Wind. I assume they got wind of David about to give you the documents, and I guess they were late.
I would agree with that. I mean, they had an opportunity to do so when they kidnapped him the second time, and he didn't have a name. They didn't do it then. For me, it all goes back to this hollow trust. And maybe that's the wrong thought process, but that's the thing that stands out more than anything else. There is something else, which is the relationship with Wolf International. As you can see, so There's three Davids. Or three, no, not three Davids. There's three Ryans. A 7-year-old. And then two adult Ryans. One of them has rather indiscriminate transactions. You can utilize that as your control data. If you then extract out that control data from the sussy Ryan, a picture begins to form surrounding some particular activity. Now, one thing that stands out in there is a series of leased properties, ones that are not being paid on a cadence. At the end of that is a purchased home. A home that over a year and a half is paid at a rate of, I think, like $4,800. That property continues to be paid for until the end of 2024. That property may still contain documents of interest or things that are being sought.
I think I agree with you. Because if the timeline is correct, Caleb Rowe gets kidnapped by the Faceless, which then leads the Faceless to these bank documents. How would the Faceless know about these bank documents? It would be Caleb Rowe. Caleb Rowe must have leaked information on who Roman Gray is, that he infiltrated the Faceless, that he was an FIB agent. So I can already come to two conclusions. The Faceless want to know where Roman Gray is, who he is. He could be in one of those rooms.
He could. And that's why over the weekend we scrubbed every single property in Mirror Park. Including but not limited to properties that were there's a Wolf's International guy that tried to reclaim one of them. But we'll see what that leads to.
This really is a rabbit hole. Like
I mean, look,
said,
it's going to be mostly guesswork. Intent is very difficult, right? Even if Caleb Rowe, let's say, led to this. Wait a minute. If Caleb Rowe was kidnapped by the first party, that's how they arrive at that conclusion. Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Only time's gonna tell. So there's nothing about the Hollow Trust that rings a bell for you there, Blake.
not me personally, but the Oracle. I can ask. I'm sure there's a lot. The fun, perhaps. You know, in Victor Blackwell's diary, I was told it does mention the Hollow Trust.
It does. Yeah. Possible investors is my presumption.
I can confirm Victor Blackwell was an investor of the Faceless, the only one we've actually seen. It's interesting. Well, Brian, I think this goes to show that the Faces have been very busy. They just haven't been loud about it. But there's one thing. He's very interested in this conversation. We've talked a lot. Ian Crawford. Anyway, I'll see what I can find out the Hollow Trust for you there, Brian. I'll be in contact, okay?
Yeah. All right. I appreciate it. You stay safe. Okay, I know that was long as shit, but holy fuck.
Good intel then.
Yeah, we need to rendezvous at observatory so I can break this all down. Well, the first thing I'm going to mention is apparently Caleb Rowe is not the fucking whistleblower, but rather the second Morse code. I'll explain it all at observatory. Let's load up.
030 mounted. I'm gonna do perimeter, just double check.
McAllister, you good?
Help me for northbound, the Pierce code 4.